You think you hate it now, but wait till you drive it.
The Kibbe and Friends Show.
What it is, bro?
Featuring Rob Kibbe.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Justin Corn Dog Cornett.
New guy's in the corner puking his guts out.
And show producer Bernie McPartland.
This is the DJ 3000, and it has 3 distinct varieties of inane chatter.
Talking cars.
Do you feel this vehicle is safe for highway travel?
Yes, I do.
Diving deep on the topics that matter most.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
And totally redeem yourself!
And the Dukes of Hazzard. Available in iTunes, Stitcher, and whatever else it is you listen on.
Turn up the volume.
The Kibbe and Friends Show.
Kibbe and Friends Show, episode number 127. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Yeah, we haven't been on YouTube in a few months. Who am I kidding? We'll get it back at some point. This is just Rob here. Bernie's not here. Corn Dog's not here. Here's why. Bernie and I went to the SEMA show. In fact, we're at the SEMA show right now through the power of the internet as you hear this. I recorded this in the past. Corn Dog stiffed us. He is not going to the SEMA show. He is staying home to hoard authentic General ECB antennas, maybe boil peanuts. I don't know what, mow his lawn. All of those are true things. I'm kind of lying about him stiffing. He didn't, but sounds legit, right? Right. Anyway, we're at SEMA right now, so I'm getting a show out in advance of such. If you two are at SEMA, come find me, come find Bernie, come find our sales director, Seth. I love going to SEMA, first and foremost, for the people. There are people that I talk to on a fairly regular basis throughout the year that I may only see once per year, and I really love that. I really don't love Las Vegas. It's just not my bag. That part of the country is not my friend. I'm from a place where there's green grass and green crops half the year. I just don't like orange dirt. I don't get it. It's not my thing. Don't let anybody fool you. If there's a cheap way to get through Vegas, I have not found it. I find it pretty expensive. If this convention were somewhere else warm, I'd be all for that. At this point, it's pretty hard to imagine it any other way, but it's a fun place to go. It is a great event. We are doing a ton of interviews for our network. You're going to hear the bulk of those over on Muscle Car Place. I will be on some other people's shows this time, which will be fun. Just last night, I got the invite for us to attend the Mopar event on Tuesday, get this, at 4:26 p.m. 4:26, right? 4:26 Hemi. There's a press conference. There's a social media influencer discussion. How about that? Between you and me, I don't know what a social media influencer discussion is or why we're invited, but I said yes. If we get there and they just want us to record it, I will be disappointed. Hopefully I get to be a part of it. But it's cool. There will be a lot going on. Again, if you find us there, grab us. Just pull us aside. Love to talk to you. We'll have stickers and stuff to give away. Since we are gone, here is a special edition of the show for you to enjoy this week. And this special edition is brought to you by Holley, the official air and delivery system of the Muscle Car Place podcast network, Wyotech, the official automotive educational institution of the Muscle Car Place Network, and Aluma Trailers, the official trailer of the Muscle Car Place Network. All of that sounds very fancy. Look, here's the thing. These 3 companies came aboard for the fall of this year, honestly, to try us out and to see if we're worth their advertising space. Our network, this show, wow, all the cards. It has taken years for the podcast space to be looked at as a valuable and important thing in the automotive aftermarket world. If you're in business, religion, sports, you've been crushing it in the podcast world for years. Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, those are all pretty big names. They've been all over there for years. But in automotive, it's taken a time. We're now looked at as the equivalent of TV or YouTube. Now, I was an early adopter of the podcast space because I love it. Had I known it would take 10 years to get here, I don't know what decision I would make differently, but the reality is brands like these, Holley, Wyotech, Aluma, they are here now. And they're the ones we want on these shows, right? It's just the greatest fit. They're the companies that we buy our stuff from anyway, or in the case of Wyotech, a place we'd want to go. So please support them. when you call them, even if you're just calling for information, tell them that you heard about them on these shows. And here's a little extra bonus. Go to Muscle Car Plays, 405 for Wyotech, 408 for Holley, and this week 410 for Aluma. Check those out. Again, if you call them up, even if you're not buying something, just tell them that you heard it here. Please, please, and thank you, as Ron Swanson would say. So with that said, here's what we have for you today. I'm going to play an interview for you with Cale Makrowski. He's a 15-year-old kid. Well, young man, he's a listener to our show, and he's going to make you believe that the next generation is not doomed. In fact, they are going to thrive. They're going to be A-OK. Cale came on the show with parental permission, and he's a really good model car builder, and I just think that's neat, and he's going to share some of his tips and tricks to making really realistic cars. I think he's doing one for Taylor Hull right now for his drift car Stonewall. He's done many of the roadkill cars. He has the most unique General Lee model ever, and that's what caught our attention on Instagram. It is a General Lee that he built that A, looks beat up and haggard, and B, looks like Doc Brown built it into a time machine. It's a flying time machine. Remember Back to the Future, the DeLorean? If Doc would have chosen the General Lee, not a Charger, but the General Lee to be a time machine, this is it. I did not know this until we had the interview, but the reason he chose to do this is because of an episode we did earlier this year where we reviewed the movie Back to the Future. So you are about to hear all of it. If you need a reason to smile today, kick back and enjoy. I think you're going to love it. Bernie, roll 'em, please.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm.
Today we have a special guest, Cale Makrowski, a 15-year-old model car builder and automotive enthusiast. We absolutely have parental permission to do this. Mr. Makrowski said it was okay. So we have all built models at one point. Cale is creating stuff at a different level, though. He's creating scale crack models of real cars, custom cars, super accurate, difficult. He's done several Hot Rod Magazine cars owned by our friend Jacob Davis. And he made a Back to the Future General Lee. And I did say General Lee. I don't know why, and I really don't know how. So we're going to figure this out. Cale, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Rob. This is really cool. Obviously, I listen to your show, Kibby and Friends, and Muscle Car Place all the time. And cool. It's kind of been like a dream to be able to talk to you and stuff. So this is awesome.
Oh, my pleasure. And, I've been surfing your Instagram page here for a while. I didn't put two and two together until maybe a couple months ago that you were the guy that built the Jacob Davis car models. I don't know why I didn't figure that out, but I didn't.
That's me.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, we're going to run this in Kibby and Friends because I think a lot of people are going to want to hear about, how you did the General Lee stuff. But let's start at the beginning. So where do you live? Where are you from? You can speak in general terms here, but maybe how old are you? What grade are you in?
Well, I'm 15, so sophomore in high school, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois, so Midwest, close to you. Very cool. What got you into building models? Well, obviously I've been into cars my whole life and all, and obviously my dad he actually has 69 GTO, and my first ride home from the hospital was in that car. And
really?
So was my brother and sister in the middle of Chicago winter when it's snowing, so that was pretty cool. I mean, I've obviously always been to car shows, races, the track, everything, and then for my 8th birthday, my dad got me, I still have it, a 72 Cutlass Supreme model kit, and that was my first one.
Cool.
And it just started from there pretty much.
Your father, so if he's got a GTO, is he pretty into cars as well?
Yes. I mean, he's had tons of cars. I mean, we have this one wall in our garage I'm staring at right now. I mean, that's just covered with a license plates from every car he's had. Right now, he's had this 69 GTO for 16 years, so he's had it like a year before I was born. And then he's had a 79 Camaro since high school, so 17 or 18, I want to say. And, I mean, that car's pretty much stayed the same all these years. It's just a 454 big block with a 4-speed and a 12-bolt. It's got a cage in it, and, I mean, it's probably the best sounding car ever. The big blocks just sound so good. I love that car. He's had it forever. He learned how to do a lot on that car, and my grandfather actually painted it. He owns a body shop. And then the GTO he's had for 16 years. It's been one of his dream cars forever. And he went down to Missouri and bought it, and then he drove it back from there. It was like sort of painted. Some body panels were. It just had the 400 in there. And then he eventually swapped it out with the 455. I mean, the car's like not like restored to like museum quality per se, but like, I mean, it's his daily. He drives it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, so 5 years ago now, me and him took it apart in our garage. We put the body up on a 2x4 post, like makeshift lift we made all the way in the back bay. And then we sandblasted the whole underside. We stripped the chassis, powder coated and sandblasted the whole thing. And then we put an LS3 with a T56 in there, a Ford 9-inch and a 4-link. And I've learned everything on that car. It's one of my favorite cars for sure.
You don't know this, but every dad is smiling and probably tearing up at this point.
Yeah.
As to some of these moments.
I could go on and on.
Yes. Yeah. This is very cool. So you're 15. Correct. When can you get a driver's license in Illinois? I don't know. 16, 17?
So 16. I'm guessing it's same by you, 16?
Yeah, it's 16 here.
So I do not have my permit yet. Hopefully getting it next month. My birthday is all the way in April, but with like the whole school schedule and stuff, it's tough to get everything in. But
yeah, it sure can be. What are you going to drive once you have a license?
Well, everybody's been asking me this, and everybody that knows me or is friends with me or talks to me knows that my second favorite car of all time is the 71 Plymouth Duster. So been saving up slowly but steadily for as long as I've been alive, pretty much, for that, mowing lawns. And then recently, this past year, I started doing commission models of replicas for people, and then making little scale parts and selling those. So over time, it just adds up, and obviously birthday money and Christmas. So I'm planning on getting one this winter. And my goal, I say my goal for a reason, is to try to get it ready for Power Tour next year. I really want to do that. Something that I can build myself, learn everything on. Obviously, you've seen my builds and stuff, something that's ready, something that's cheap on a budget that I can afford. But yeah, I just love old cars, and that's what I want to do.
I love it. I love every bit of it. We will talk models, but right before we started rolling tape here, your name is Cale. Why is your name Cale?
Yes. My dad wanted to name me Dale after Dale Sr. and Dale Jr. We're big Dale Earnhardt fans here, big NASCAR fans. And my mom said no. So that was the end of that. And my dad said the next best option was Cale Yarbrough. So there's kind of a funny story behind that. He was number 11, obviously, drove the Holley Farms Chevelle, and I was born on the 11th, so that's kind of cool. I just like to tell that story a lot.
There you go. So, and there's a strong Dukes of Hazzard connection to Cale Yarbrough as well. It was in 2 episodes,
yes,
I think.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes, my favorite episode.
Okay, well, we need an education in models here, so what I'm going to recommend people do is we're going to put a link in the show notes here that you should be able to find on your phone to Cale's Instagram page. So go look at that while you're listening to this. When you are selecting a car you want to do you ever consider what model kits are available first, or do you just go say, all right, I'd like to make that. Let me see if I can find a model kit that's close enough. Like, where do you start?
Well, it's kind of tough. So obviously, I do like replicas of some cars, but a majority of my builds are just whatever from my imagination. I mean, I like building this stuff from my imagination more than the replicas. And I'm sure some people can see why, because you can just kind of do whatever. There's like no per se rules to follow.
Yep.
But to start, basically, I usually get inspiration from wherever I'm watching, like YouTube or I don't know, like Motor Trend, something from there. Like I have these ideas, and every time I get an idea, I write them down in this book I have. It's filled with all my ideas of either models someday or hopefully real cars. And I just kind of get inspiration from there. And then the next step, I kind of know what kits there are out there. I've been not doing this as long as some people, but 6 years now or 7 years building models.
Really?
Through Instagram and stuff. Like I've met a lot of people that have helped me like kind of get like parts and stuff and like teach me how to build like certain ways or detail different things. So I kind of know like what's out there already. But like per se for the Hornet, there wasn't, obviously there's not a kit out for that. So I started with a 74 Gremlin and cut it up from there. So that's how that one started.
Really? Okay, I've looked at that model
Yeah.
picture a few times, and it's very accurate. So that leads to my next question. So how do you do body modifications? How do you make a fender flare? Like, what do you make? Is that Bondo you're using? I don't know what you're using.
Yeah, there's obviously different like brands of stuff. Like I started out using only like what I knew and what my dad knew. So I used real car Bondo that we had in the garage, right? And after a while, it turns out real car stuff doesn't work as well on plastic. So just through looking stuff up online, I found this Tamiya putty that I use for everything. And I mean, it seems to work, but like for fender flares, usually I buy flat like stocks. So like, you know how you buy like flat stocks of like aluminum or like sheet metal.
Sure.
So it's the same thing, but for plastic basically. So I just flat sheets of plastic, and then same with all my tubing and all my like chassis pieces, all the square and round tubing. I just have like tons and tons of that. Basically endless supply pretty much. I have a lot. Every time I go to the store, I stock up. And I just kind of shape the flare like the way that I want to, heat it up, obviously, cut it, trim it to size, and then glue it in place, and then basically use filler to fill the gap between the edge of the flare and the body, so it creates that angle. So it's just not like a flat body and then just like the rounded flare to create the angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. But blending it in must be pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't know what a lot of guys do actually, but what I do is I put out my finger and wipe it in between, and it works.
Okay. And then, I mean, I suppose you can sand it and paint it, and that will kind of hide the rest of it or make the rest of it blend in like you wanted it to.
It obviously takes multiple coats of everything to get it to build up, to make it look right, like multiple coats of the body filler and then primer and then paint, and you got to sand it all in between and stuff, so... It's not just slap it on and go, as I'm sure you know.
Right. So like for chrome, like for a drip edge or for a door handle or something like that. I had a friend who was really into models and it was until he showed me, I didn't even know it was a thing, but it looks like a sheet of aluminum foil to me, but it's maybe sticky backed, and he would cut that out and form it over anything he wanted to make chrome. Is that like what you use for things like that?
So some guys use that for chrome and stuff. I actually, up until this year, pretty much these past couple months, I just used like aluminum steel paint, basically, so silver paint with a little brush, and just kind of dragged it along on there to create that. But now they actually make like chrome pens. So it's basically like chrome ink, and it's like a pen basically, and you just trace it out, the outline of the chrome. Per se, that works for like drip rails, trim and stuff, but it doesn't work well for bumpers because like you can tell it's like drawn on there. So you can pop the pen apart and then dip a brush in there, and then you can paint it on for like bumpers or big chrome pieces. Okay,
that's cool. Wheels and tires. So again, I'm going back to one of the cars you made for Jacob. You know, obviously the green Hornet has unique wheel tire setup. The El Camino.
Yes.
What did you do for the El Camino as far as wheels and tires? Do you have another endless supply of wheels, tires, and hubcaps, and I don't know, whatever?
Well, 7 years of building will get you a nice setup bin of extra tires and rims.
I'm sure.
But the ones he has on the Elko are not like oddball or per se rare rims. They're like pretty common Chevy rims. So I just looked through my parts bin, and I had 4 in that size, or 4 of those rims. So I was like, sweet, this is perfect. I got like super lucky with that. So yeah, just had to paint those just to the correct size, and then make them fit the right size tires. And obviously rims and like the tires for these, they're like solid pieces of air rubber. They're not like actual like real tires. So I just use a Dremel to hone out the inside, and then just slide the rim in until it fits right, basically.
Really? Okay. That's pretty clever. Interesting. So what do you do if you need glass? Do you use glass, or do you use plastic for, you know, windshields and things like that?
Yeah. So like, obviously like the green Hornet, the front glass is like curved. So I cut for that car just the A-post, half the front door, and then the rest of the back half I just cut off and built the back from scratch, basically. So like the front window that came with the Gremlin kit is curved, and it's like thicker plastic, so that works perfect for the front. But like the back ones, they're just flat, so I just have like a flat stock of clear plastic, and you just cut it to size, and then you just glue it on the inside of the window. But like for other ones, for other kits, like I buy like rebuilder kits, which are basically like somebody else built it, but like they're junk and they sell them for like $5 on eBay or something. Usually they'll have like scratches or like paint or like chips everywhere, and you can just take it apart and just use what you need from it. Like usually I just use the bodies from those. And then for those, I just take the clear plastic sheets. They're pretty thin where you can bend them and then glue them in place. And then you just use tape to hold it while it dries in place. And then leave it for a couple hours, take the tape off, and it'll just stay in place. That has worked pretty well for me so far. I don't know what a lot of other guys do, but I just use kind of what I know and kind of what I can do.
You are pretty clever and you're very resourceful, but you're just using like a lot of very common sense. Like, all right. Yeah, it's pretty good. It all makes sense as you describe it.
I just try to keep it all like kind of simple, or what I have out here in the garage or what my dad's got, like all my tools and stuff. They're just basically all my dad's old stuff, or just, I don't know, just like Sharpies or simple stuff, just normal scissors. Like for all my detail and engine wiring, my dad's an airplane mechanic, so he has all this safety lock wire from work. And it's just safety wire, basically. Simple. I have tons of it at home, different thicknesses and sizes. And I just cut those with the dikes and then just kind of bend them up to size, plug them in the engine. It's worked for me so far. So, and it's cheap. I have it, so it works.
All right, bada bing. It's all that easy. And again, if you're listening to this, go click the link to his Instagram page. It's in the show notes here. Now let's talk about this General Lee you made. You made a General Lee. If Back to the Future would have used the General Lee and not a Charger, the General Lee, that's what you made. And you made the flying version of all things. So let's start with why. Why did you choose to make that?
I DM'd you about this. I don't know, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that's how this whole thing kind of got started. When I was listening to your show, what was it, May or June, you guys reviewed Back to the Future. It just got me thinking. I was like, what if they made a Back to the Future 4, but Bo and Luke Duke are on it? Like, how awesome would that be? Like, 2 of the greatest movie, TV show cars ever combined. Like, that'd be so cool. Obviously, all my builds are like rust and patina and stuff. That's just that's like the style I like. So I added that in and kind of mixed it all together, and it turned out how it turned out.
It's really neat. Did you start with the General Lee model then? Is this a couple kits combined plus custom stuff? I can't tell by looking at it what you didn't make.
Yeah, so obviously the main is the General Lee kit, the main piece of it. And then I bought Back to the Future 2 DeLorean kit and used the rear like section, where the vents are and stuff. And then I used some of the pieces. I'm looking at it right now, trying to figure out what I did. But I used the, don't know what they're technically called, but like the silver pieces that are on the quarter panels and the roof that kind of like make an L shape. Those pieces I used.
The electric things? Yes, I know what you're talking
about. Yeah, they like light up blue or whatever. Yeah. And then the front piece that goes across, the front grille. And then just, I don't know what they're technically called, but the part that connects the wheels to the body, like the part that like turns down or whatever. Like the kind of makeshift axles it has, like the hover part of it. And then the dash from it. That's all I used from the Back to the Future kit. And a lot of cutting, a lot of gluing and painting later. I kind of molded it around the General Lee body. I didn't want it to basically look like, oh, these are just like slapped together and it looks kind of cheesy. I kind of wanted to make it look like the General Lee was like the actual like car. Like instead of picking a DeLorean, they picked the General Lee and built it around that. So that was kind of my whole goal with it. I'm pretty happy with it turned out.
It's very cool. Now, it's not a shiny General Lee. It looks like a whooped, it's been through many time travels. General Lee. What was that? I know that the look of that is one of your favorites. Did you have a theme beyond that?
I have learned over 7 years of building that I cannot build shiny cars. That's one of my weak spots. Like a lot of the replicas I do, you notice they're all like not like shiny show cars, like the Hornet. It's all patina. It's my style. I just like the look of it, and I think it looks kind of cool. And especially for the General Lee, what I did is I painted like the front edge of the hood and the front fenders black, and then the front right in between the 2 A-posts right on top of the roof. I painted it black and then just took my finger and basically like dragged the paint back on the car, so it kind of looked like it was like going through the air pretty much. And then before, obviously, I painted all orange stuff as primered, and then I painted orange, and once that was done, I just kind of went over it with sandpaper and then just sanded it down so like you could see the primer through the orange.
Got it all good and scuffed up. Okay. And then...
kind of looked like it was like used on the show, and then they took it to the Back to the Future.
Yeah, it looks like it has gone through like 1,000 time jumps or something like that. Now, what's all the stuff that's in the back seat? It looks like a bunch of circuitry.
Okay, so obviously there's the flux capacitor. I used the stock charger seats in there, and then I used the Back to the Future DeLorean dash because it has like all the details, like all the clocks and all the wires and stuff on it, and I painted it like that. And then in between the two seats is the flux capacitor, and then I basically built a box over the back rear seat. And then on top of that box, my dad brought home from work. He had this old circuit board from the airplanes I asked him to bring home, and then I cut it up to size and basically like fit it on there. And I'm sure you know, or people listening, that there's like little boxes and like wires and stuff. So it kind of made it look like the rear seat that's actually in the DeLorean.
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. The detail that you put in, like, for example, I don't know what you call this thing, but where you would put the plutonium in the back, before there was a Mr. Fusion, you just put plutonium in there, and it's a circular chamber, and there's like these yellow vents that go from the higher part to the lower part. Well, you have that in there. You have that painted in. I don't know how you did it. It looks really hard to do. You got the cap painted. You got the tanks painted above it. Everything looks legit. It looks like a Whoop Generally got turned into the Back to the Future car. And then you went above and beyond and made some like photos of the car flying, edited, which is awesome.
I built the car. My buddy Adam does all the photos. I mean, he can work a camera and the editing software really well. I have no idea how to do any of that. But I basically held the car with fishing wire, like did a loop underneath the front tires and the rear tires. I tried it with just one in the middle, and the car kept tilting back and forth. And so I just had that. And then I held it above this edge of the pond by our house, just down the road. I was like, all right, I'm going to swing this back and forth, and you make it look like it's flying. He's like, okay. We kind of swung it around for a while. So we got some photos that we liked. I'm very picky on how I want it to look, and I'm glad he understands that. I think the photos turned out like really cool. I kind of wanted to make it look like it was flying, obviously, and like the DeLorean has the blue flames coming out from underneath the tires. So that took us a while to figure out in the whole editing process and stuff. But I mean, I'm really happy with how they came out.
It looks really, really good. Again, people will look at this and it'll make even more sense. But as they hear how you've described it, I think they've got a really good gist of it. Are there any companies that make a better model kit than others as far as the quality goes? I mean, when I was your age, it was MPC. That was probably what I liked the best. I don't know what's good now.
Revell is the main one. Revell/Monogram. That has been around forever. And then there's AMT is one. And then MPC. Those are like the four major ones you'll find in like your local hobby shops or like Hobby Lobby. And then there's Lindbergh and Johan. They're like not as popular. They make more of like older stuff. That's pretty much it. There's a bunch of guys that like make their own like resin bodies, or like just oddball kind of stuff that you like normally wouldn't see. Don't ask me how they make it. I have no idea. Those are usually more expensive than your just like generic kits. But the kits, I mean, they come with everything to make it fairly realistic. Obviously, you have to add like your own detail and paint and stuff. Most of the kits don't come molded in color like a lot of the older ones did. They all come like white, but some of the other kits I have, they're like molded in color.
You said before that you might make parts, or maybe you'll even make a model for somebody. If not sure what all you'd like to do, but how can people reach out to you? Is Instagram or DMing you the best way for people to get some help or guidance or buy something?
Yeah, Instagram is usually the best. Cam_racing is my Instagram. Cam is my initials. I get called Cameron all the time. My name's Kale. But yeah, that's usually the best way. I'm on there. I post like my progress of what I'm doing on my builds, or like if we go to like roadkill nights or like power tour, I'm always posting stuff up on there. But usually every time I build something, which is every day, I usually post it. I just like to kind of see what people think of it, or like maybe if like one of my ideas helps someone. I get a lot of questions. I'm like, how'd you build this or how'd you build that? And I try to reply to most of them. I just kind of think it's cool when people ask me questions or are inspired by some of the stuff I do.
Well, I think that's awesome. Just to give people a little last piece of detail here, in Jacob Davis's Green Hornet, he's even got the magazines in the back seat. Is that a box of oil or wet wipes or something that's in the passenger seat, and some In-N-Out burger? And what is all this stuff?
Yeah, I tried to go insane on the detail there. I probably bothered him every day, texting him, asking him for pictures and stuff. I even did the ratchet strap holding down the battery on the inside, put the MSG box on the engine bay. And, in the passenger seat, you know him and his In-N-Out, so I made a little In-N-Out bag and cup and put it in there. And then he's got the quart of oil in the passenger seat from when he did the Cannonball, because remember, he was losing oil pressure, so I'm pretty sure that's the one where he ran to the engine bay, or that was his spare. But he sent me a picture from the Cannonball and had that in there. And then I got the 2 fuel cells in the back from when he had it. And then the 2 magazines in there are from when the Green Hornet was featured in the Roadkill magazine. Mm-hmm. And then his first shot for the cover picture of Hot Rod magazine. It was the first gen Camaro. Nah, it wasn't a Pro Mod, but it was a drag car, and it was purple and it had the Hemi in it.
Amazing. Cale, this is a great way to end the day for me, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to just be tickled to hear this. Thank you for taking the time to come on. It's encouraging, frankly, to hear somebody your age doing this kind of creative stuff. Please pass on to your dad. I appreciate his permission to do this. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll meet up at some event sometime soon. I'd like to meet you and your dad. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Are you planning on going to Power Tour next year or anything?
Oh, you never know. I never plan that far out, but I do hit a lot of events. Give out your Instagram one more time.
Cam_racing.
Cam_racing. We'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. Cale, you have a good day, and I'll catch you later, okay?
Thank you for having me on the show. This was a really awesome experience and fun talking to you. Thanks.
You bet.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm.
Awesome, right? Cale, thank you again for coming on. I really enjoyed that. And since our Back to the Future review is what triggered some of this in the first place, I think it's only fitting to roll our Back to the Future review here. And yes, that's called recycling material. Hey, Johnny Carson's still doing it. He's dead, right? Still working. So if you are new to this show and you haven't heard this review yet, this rolled in April 2019. I believe is episode 107. If you're a regular listener, it's worth hearing again. This is just cut down. This is only the review. It's not that whole show. It's the review only, no clips at the end or anything like that. Something else significant about this, just before our sales director, Seth, came aboard, he heard this show. He said, I think this show is the first time since Finnegan left where I think you've all completely hit your stride. You're in the groove now. And I take that as a compliment. And what he means is we're an ensemble working together. Here's some more inside facts. A 3-person show is harder to do than a 2-person show. No question about it. And in fact, 2 is as easy as it gets. 2 is easier than 1. The way that I do Muscle Car Place is a solo show. That's harder than doing a 2-person show. With a 2-person show, man, if one person's struggling, you just throw the ball to the other one, and they catch it, and they throw it. With an ensemble, it's hard because you're always trying to make that chemistry fit well. And you can't really invent the chemistry. You can only hone it. And I'm so blessed and lucky that we had the right chemistry, and now we can hone it. And that all showcased well in this review. So, Cale, I'm going to give you the credit for that one too. May as well, right? Bernie, go ahead and close out with our Back to the Future review. Remember, if you get this show on iTunes, leave a rating. By all means, if you enjoy what we do here, join us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/KF show. We have monthly prizes that we give away there. In fact, our monthly prizes went out. They are hand-painted Yeti-style tumblers. I think that's what they're called. As created by Nathan Warren, they're the 30-ounce ones. And they are hand-painted with official Kibbe Lee orange paint. Not a joke. This is as close as you're going to get to Nathan Warren coming to your house and painting your coffee cup and fighting off a Sasquatch in your backyard while he builds a Season 2 push bar in your driveway. think I sold that right. The the Yeti cups, you'll see them on Instagram, but we gave away 2, and they went out to, who did they go out to? Hang on, I'll tell you here just a second. It went to Jeffrey Howard and Jerry David. Guys, if you are just hearing this for the first time, they're in the mail. They're on the way out. We do prizes every single month for Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/KF show. Again, thank you so much to Wyotech, Holley, and Aluma. Check out Muscle Car Place episodes 405, 408, and 410. And we'll be back, all of us, next week after SEMA. Well, next week's the future, isn't it? That means we'll be back next week in the future. That means we will be back to the future. Nice, Robert. Enjoy, everybody. Catch you next time. Well, let's go ahead and get to our Back to the Future review. And you know what? I think all you need to do is just hear a few things, and if you hear this song, tell me immediately what you think of. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It just switch on. It's perfect, and it's still an awesome song. But whenever I hear Huey Lewis in the News, any other song, I always think of Back to the Future, and specifically Power of Love. I saw this movie in the theater, and I remember seeing it in the theater. Bernie, is this one that you saw in person?
Absolutely. I remember it. I've seen them all in the theater.
I did too. Little side note, in 10th grade in the marching band, we did a Hollywood theme, and the Back to the Future soundtrack was one of our songs. I still know the tenor drum part.
Tenor drums?
Yeah. So I played bass drum, tenor drums, and then a couple years on snare drum in high school. Tenor drums look like they look like a bunch of bongos.
Oh,
Little
okay.
bongos to
All
big
right.
bongos, and they sit out in front of you. But
They're not the quads, are they?
yeah, you can call them quads, quints. I think they're used as sixes now. Did you see this one in the theater? You might be too young.
Yeah, I was too young, but we did rent it from the local video store whenever it came out. Maybe the statute of limitations has expired, but we copied it over from one VCR to the other. And so we had our own copy. We watched that video over and over and over. We watched it probably at least 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know why, but we just love that movie.
My parents, this was absolutely their time period. They were teenagers in the 50s. They loved this movie. And it's hard for me to get the context, but in 1980, that's only 30 years after high school. I am now of the age where 30 years ago I was almost in high school. So it starts to line up with that time jump. But they freaking loved this movie. Every inside joke, all the Johnny B. Good references. I remember my mom laughing out loud when Marty McFly was doing the duck walk, like doing Johnny B. Good, look like she just thought that was the best thing. And it's a timeless movie.
Yeah.
And it's timeless because it's a time travel movie. That's the freaking wonderful beauty genius of it. And what I was hoping to do here was just go through a number of facts, and I pulled some clips. And this is an impossible movie to pull clips for because the whole movie is one big clip. There's so many quotable things in here. There's so many great lines. There's so many inside baseball references that we've probably all learned over the years. Where I would like to start here is with Christopher Lloyd. Now, Christopher Lloyd was in the TV show Taxi, I believe, and I don't know his career prior to Back to the Future super well. But I do know that the biggest thing he had done prior to that was as a Klingon in Star Trek 3. I have prepared this clip for you.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
See?
Yes,
Sounds
sir.
like Doc Brown, doesn't
But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8,
Check this out.
7, 6, 5,
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.
You know what just happened there?
Something blew up.
Doc Brown got outsmarted by Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk tricked all the Klingons onto the Enterprise, except that guy, except Doc Brown, and then he blew up the Enterprise, killed all those Klingons. Anyway, there's that. Michael J. Fox,
missed that one.
of course, was on the TV show, which I don't know if you watch this in reruns, but this was the Family Ties song. And what everybody listening probably now knows, but was a mind blower to me, was that Michael J. Fox was the original candidate to play Marty McFly, but he was not the first actor to do it.
That's right.
Yes. Bernie, do you know the story?
Wasn't it Jason Bateman? He was the first one?
Well, there are several that did it, but Eric Stoltz was the guy that filmed almost the entire movie.
They said it was like 5 weeks worth of filming. He just wasn't fit for the part. And then so they had to go back and reshoot everything. 5 weeks worth.
I do know there were several. I knew Jason was one, and I knew that because I saw like everyone in the world, saw the YouTube clip, but I didn't know how many and what order they were in. That was never really clear.
I didn't realize he was one. I think Charlie Sheen was actually one in there. John Cusack was one.
I think the Gilmore Girls were in line for that.
Yeah, Gilmore Girls were possibly in there.
Yeah.
I did have an interesting part about Michael J. Fox. He was actually on, when they wrote it, they actually kind of wrote it with Michael J. Fox in mind, but he was filming Teen Wolf, the movie, so they presented it to him, but he was actually in the middle of filming, or had a contract with Family Ties, and so that was going to kind of keep him out of it. And then after they filmed with the first guy, Eric, they made the call and said this is going to work, and then they ended up reworking a deal with whoever had the contract with Family Ties, and they said as long as it doesn't interrupt his filming with Family Ties, and so he would film all day long with Family Ties, leave there, and then go straight to Back to the Future and film till like 4 o'clock in the morning.
I think it's a pretty famous run where they had a Ford LTD wagon with a mattress in the back.
Yeah.
And they would pick him up from Family Ties, and he would sleep in it on the way over there. And then they'd let him shoot all night, and then they'd take him home, and he'd sleep for like 3 hours, and somebody would wake him up and take him to Family Ties. And somehow he did this. That's the most amazing thing about it, is that this huge empire for us, for Michael J. Fox, was probably like 5 weeks.
Yeah.
That's about it. Another interesting thing. So in high school, we toured Universal Studios. I remember like the Florida one, and they had some replica stuff there. So many people have gotten the Universal Studios backlot, the small town, confused with the Warner Brothers small town. They look similar, but they're not the same thing.
Right.
The Back to the Future town, Hill Valley, I think is also the same town from Animal House, like the final scene of Animal House. I'm pretty sure is on the Universal backlot.
I'd have to look at that and see.
Like the street where the DeLorean goes down to catch the light pole by the clock tower to go back to the future at the very. I believe that's the same street that the Deathmobile from Animal House is driving down. I think that's all the same stuff. Some interesting things that have been kind of revealed out over the years, and Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis are the two people who know with this. Bob Gale's a co-writer, Bob Zemeckis, director and co-writer. The original Time Machine was going to be a refrigerator, which later got worked into a different Steven Spielberg production as not as a time machine. It was in the latest Indiana Jones movie, where that's how Indiana Jones escaped a nuclear blast, was by getting in a refrigerator, because old school refrigerators, I think, were lead lined. That's where the lead lined.
Okay.
Protection from that. The idea to put it in a car came up just for logistics, and the reason they chose the DeLorean was because John DeLorean, the man, was on trial, and it was all over the news. And as they looked at the car, it was silver, and it kind of looked like a spaceship. Then something interesting happened. I'm going to see if I can pull the clip here.
I already know the clip. I already got it.
I'll play it. I'll bet it's the same one as you. Product placement clip. Let's see.
We're locked into the DeLorean. That's what we want to do. We have the product placement people at Universal. They're always trying to promote deals, right?
Right.
And so one day, the guy that they'd hired to actually do the product placement deals, he comes into my office. He says, Bob, we can get the production $75,000. $75,000 on this deal I'm about to lay out for you. I said, okay, Richard, what's the deal? He says, change the DeLorean to a Mustang. I looked at him. I said, Doc Brown doesn't drive a Mustang.
Right.
That was it.
Wow. That was $75,000 out the window.
Yeah, worth it.
Yeah. Well,
that's from Jay Leno's Garage. Is that the one you had pulled too?
No, I was thinking of the clip in the movies. I figured if you're going to build a time machine, why not do it with some style?
Yeah.
I read that they wanted it to be something that kind of, like you said, kind of looked futuristic and all that kind of stuff. They wanted it to look, just have the cool factor, but they also wanted the overall, not just the DeLorean, but the time machine. They wanted it to look like something that was kind of cobbled together in a garage.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they come up with the whole look of it.
I'm going to play for you a clip of the DeLorean the first sight and sound you get of the DeLorean are coming out of a trailer.
Yeah.
I'll play this, but everybody, you don't even need to see it to know what it is. A DeLorean has a PRV engine. This is what a DeLorean's real engine sounds like. Prepare to be disappointed. I can't take it.
You sure that's not your Carmageddon?
Does sound like my Carmageddon. That's a DeLorean with the cat removed, so that's actually a better sounding version of it. What they use in the movie, what everywhere I've ever read, has said it's a Porsche 928, which is a V8 engine. Here's another little clip of it. Actually, the clip we were talking about before, when it's going back to the future. It's just a great sounding engine. I mean, it sounds throaty, it sounds mean, it sounds fast. And the way that I have read this and watched different documentaries is that a few different people helped design this car. The same person that did the design for this car, like the artistic design, was also one of the guys who I think designed the entire dash of KITT from Knight Rider. I don't have his name handy, but...
there was a guy named Kevin Pike. He did special effects. And he was really kind of over the build-up of the cars.
I don't know.
He did electronics and stuff, but it may not be the same guy.
This was the guy who did the artistic rendering and then built it, I believe. A real visionary kind of person, but the DeLorean's kind of a hatchback. The car itself has a weenie engine, but it's really based on, I think, a Lotus Esprit type suspension and chassis setup. So it could be capable. No power steering. It's kind of a clunker, like Jay Leno in his little clip that he was doing with what we pull there. Is like, you always see DeLoreans going down the road and they're always sniffing the white line. You know, that was the whole John DeLorean reference because A, the cars drove like crap, and B, they loved cocaine. This has made its way into pop culture. You can use this for any reference you want.
Hey, McFly!
Right?
Hey, McFly!
That means you're in trouble, moron. That's what it always means.
Or the other ones are where he always screws up the punchline, where he says, make like a tree and get out of here. Later, not episodes, but the later sequels, his own self goes back and corrects him and says, you sound like an idiot. Let's make like a tree and leave.
When you do it right. The plot of the movie, which we have not mentioned yet, is probably... I didn't catch this as a kid. Like, it's a whole movie about incest. That's the point of the movie. Never caught it. Like, I just thought it was a fun movie.
I didn't either, but just before we started, I kind of read that, and I was like, you know what? That makes perfect sense. Yeah, it does. I never caught it either.
He goes back in time, accidentally runs into his mother, and she finds him not just good looking, but like... hot to try. She cannot get enough of him. And then he befriends his father, ends up bringing his parents together to right the wrong that he screwed up by going back in time. But by going back in time, he kind of brings out the best part of both of them, which they did not know. Their lives change. And when he returns to the future, he's still himself, but the world has kind of changed around him, and his parents are no longer losers. His dad is no longer a pushover at work. His mom is no longer a drunk. They actually have a really good life. His brother and sister are better people. But I always wondered, why didn't his dad start putting two and two together? And then this little bit from Family Guy, they got it figured out.
Hey, Lorraine, whatever happened to that guy Marty from high school?
Don't know. Never saw him after the prom.
Really? Sure you didn't run into him, say, about 16 years ago?
George, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that our son, who you insisted we name after that guy Marty, looks exactly like him. You think I'm an idiot? That I wouldn't notice that our son is a dead ringer for the guy who fixed us up?
Mom, Dad, I accidentally set fire to the living room rug.
I am not going easy on him.
I've never seen that.
There's another one. It's so bad. I don't even want to say it out loud, but I'll tell you anyway. So, Stewie is up on the ledge of their house, and it's a big rainstorm, and he's got to get a rope or something. And all of a sudden, Michael J. Fox runs up and goes, "I need to tell you something about the future." And Stewie says, No, Michael, I need to tell you something about the future.
That's wrong.
It's so cruel, but it's very timely and funny. I have some box office mojo for you, some actual facts. Let me pull this up here. So, release date, July 3rd, 1985, Universal Studio. Production budget, $19 million. Domestic gross, $210 million. In the world of a startup, when you do an investment in something high risk, you're looking for a 10x usually. You want 10 times your money back. This is an 11x. This was not only a win, it was a huge, huge win. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards: original screenplay, sound editing, and original song. And the original song was The Power of Love. It did get a win. Do you guys know which one it got the win in?
Now that you do the whole list, no, I don't. I forgot.
It's the one that you would win, Bernie. Sound editing.
I believe that because when we got our our real VCR copy of it, and here at the house, I've got a pretty good stereo in the living room, and we've always had good sound equipment, naturally, I guess. I remember putting in the tape and the opening sequence where he's riding the skateboard, around, and he's eventually gets into Doc's apartment. And things are happening from left to right, and you hear that stuff walking across the screen. Sounds coming from here and over here and all. I thought that was the coolest thing, that they had taken the time to do that. And maybe I was last in line to notice it, but in that environment, I could finally hear it. You can't really pick up on that in the theater because it's so loud and so big, that you kind of get lost in that, what they call the stereo field effect. You kind of lose that, but in your living room, it really comes to life. And so I was really impressed with that, and listen for that often, like movies like Titanic, since it sank this week as we record. Yeah. Awesome film to watch at home, if you've got a good stereo system. Lots going on in that. A lot of good sound design. So good. Yeah.
A friend, kind of a distant friend, but that is really into this movie and is not a car guy, I kind of said, someday I'll help you get a DeLorean. He always wanted it to be a Back to the Future car, and I said, it doesn't have to be that. But as I was doing my research, well, there were several different Speedo options. And DeLorean Motor Company, the new one, I believe in Houston, Bernie, so we could send you on a mission over there to get more info. But I believe one of the Speedo options, which was probably on these cars, read 5 miles per hour to 85 miles per hour. Did you catch in the movie what the speedometer actually said? Now, remember, how fast do they have to go to time travel?
88.
88.
Yeah.
So if you had a speedo that said 85, how do you make it say 88? They changed the speedo. It was 15 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour. Just bump both sides up 10 so that you could get it to 88. And there were 3 different cars, and there's no telling which one could have had the factory like 110 or 140 or something like that. The other interesting thing is that I believe all 3 cars used in this movie were U.S. spec edition. And without all the movie gear and props on it, the nose of those cars would have been sitting taller than the tail. Really dorky looking. The Euro spec cars tucked down nice and low. And most people that have DeLoreans now in the U.S. put them to Euro spec, and they snug the front end down. That was strictly to pass 5 mile an hour bumper tests. It was just to get the bumper up a little bit higher. The cars that they used on set were highly unreliable. Those engines were junk. They were made junk, from what I'm told. But the way that they had configured the whole hatchback of the car was that you couldn't get to the engine without taking the car apart. So if it didn't run, you truly had a problem. The hero car, that in this movie they labeled them A, B, and C. The hero car, after the movie was done, sat on the back lot at Universal and got picked apart by different fans that kind of snuck in and took parts off it. And it was kind of a shell of its former self. And it was left outside the whole time. Kind of like all the General Lees, right? Just sat outside.
Well, Universal was really bad about doing that with their cars. They did it with American Graffiti 32. And it sat there with no hood on it and got reined in and the motor locked up because it's got open carburetors.
Well, some super fans broke in, one of them, and was, I don't know if he was stealing parts, but he was like their version of you. Like he'd go in, take the part off, photo it, take drawings of it, figure out what it was made of, and then put it back on so that he could replicate it and make his own. And he ended up building a really accurate replica, and at some fan convention showed it to Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. They were so impressed with how authentic it was that they found a way to get he and his crew commissioned to restore the original car. And that car has now been fully restored back to its original status, and I want to say it's in the Universal Museum somewhere. And there were more cars used throughout the series. I don't remember how many there were in the other two movies. The one that died at the end, like that got hit by a train, that was a real DeLorean that really got hit by a train that they loaded up with wet concrete so that the train would smash right through it and rip it apart instead of just kind of knocking it out of the way. But for me, the first movie, it's the go-to. My favorite, hands down. My dad's is the third. He loves the Western. That's his favorite, but...
I probably like all three of them equally. I read that the part 2 and part 3 were actually originally planned to be one movie. It got so much jumping around that they said, okay, we're going to break it up into 2 movies. But they filmed them consecutive. And I think they said they filmed part 2 and part 3 in 11 months. I just remember when the part 2 and 3 came out in the theaters, it was boom, boom, one right after the other. So that makes sense.
I got a deleted scene for you. This is real. I didn't make this up. This is in the garage where Doc Brown finds his suitcase from his 1985 counterpart with all of the belongings in it. You got to see this for this to all make sense. I want you to tell me what he finds at the end.
What's this thing?
It's a hairdryer.
A hairdryer? Don't they have towels in the future? Look at these underpants. They're all made of cotton. I thought for sure we'd all be wearing disposable paper garments by 1985. What's this? Ooh, suddenly the future's looking a whole lot better.
Do you guys know what he found?
I don't. I haven't seen that clip, but what era Doc Brown was that?
That's the 50s Doc Brown finding the 80s Doc Brown suitcase.
Was it the Ooh La La magazine?
That's what I was wondering.
It's the 1985 version of it. It's a
Playboy.
Yeah. Oh. He takes a Playboy. Whoa.
Ooh la la. Ooh la la.
There are so many deleted clips that when you see them after the fact actually make an unbelievable movie even better. The hairdryer thing, when he's Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, the hairdryer goes in and out of his build in between scenes. And it's actually a longer scene filmed out. And the hairdryer that he brought is Doc Brown's, which was just the one that he found in his suitcase right there. I mean, it's...
It's one of those that you have to watch over and over and over because you'll miss little clips here and there. I mean, the little attention to detail that they had. One thing I remember reading, at the very beginning of the movie, he said, meet me at the Twin Pines Mall. Of course, everything happens. Marty jumps in the car. He's getting away from the terrorists, and he winds up in 1955 on the farm. Well, they chase him out of the barn, and when he's hauling butt down the driveway, I can't remember if he runs it over or the farmer shoots it. It was Twin Pine Farm or whatever, and he shoots one of the pines down. Well, then later in the movie, they go back to the mall again, but now you look at the sign, it's called the whatever, Single Pine Mall or Lone Pine Mall or whatever.
I've never caught that.
Actually, when he goes back, towards the end of the movie to basically relive everything that happened before he left, look at the sign because it's like the Lone Pine Mall or something like that.
No kidding.
I never caught that.
It's so many little details like that you have to watch over and over, and you pick up something every single time you watch it.
I don't remember if I noticed it the first time, but the old man, the old farmer, when they come out, his son has a comic book that's an alien invasion comic book, and there's an alien craft on the front of it with a gull-wing door opening.
Right.
It has square headlights on the front of it, and then they look up, and there's the DeLorean with the gull-wing door that opens.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
His comic book's coming to life.
Nah, man, that's a good one. I will check that
Good choice for a movie, boss. Good choice.
What would you guys give this one on a scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 10 what?
1 to 10.
Pine trees?
Pine trees.
Corn dogs?
Yes, pine trees.
10 pine trees.
I give it 10 as well. And that was another thing. Hollywood's gone to the habit of recreating old movies. They just need to leave this one alone. Don't ever try to recreate it because it's perfect just the way it is.
I, too, give it 10 pine trees. I texted Finnegan. We were talking back and forth about some other stuff, and I said, hey, off the top of your head, what is the very first line that comes to you from Back to the Future? What do you think he said?
1.21 gigawatts.
No, not that one.
Great Scott.
Biff's favorite line. Say hello to your mom for me.
That's very funny, but it's not that one. I'm going to see if I can pull up the clip. I thought I had it loaded, but I did not.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
That's Mike's favorite. That was mine, too. That's always the one I think of first. The remote control that he has there is a Futaba brand, which I used in my old RC cars. And I remember seeing this in the theater, like, why does he have the levers reversed? Usually the lever on the left is the throttle and the right's the steering. And also, the battery indicator says it's off. Little things.
And because the right hand is like the right foot is the throttle, so you could keep them straight, perhaps.
I don't know. I couldn't figure out how it worked with a stick shift either.
Yeah, when it's a stick shift once and then it's an automatic. Yeah.
All right. Yes, this is a perfect 10. Everybody, if you have not seen this one or not seen it in a while, do yourself a favor and dust it off and enjoy this weekend. We have a ton of sound clips that Bernie will lovingly stick in the sound effects, which I'm sure that we can all enjoy. So, fellas, I think it's time to exit. What music can do for anything. You put this soundtrack on anything, it'll be a hit.
We had the record, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay, you can get the show on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Please do support our sponsor, Harry's. They paid for this show so that you don't have to. Ha ha. If you are a Patreon supporter, thank you for being one. You can send in your questions to us for our Patreon April show. And if you're not a Patreon supporter, we'd ask that you give it a shot. You can try it out. It doesn't cost very much. And if you get in now, you get access to all the old stuff too. Patreon.com/KF show. Fellas, is there anything else we need to do?
No. Go home and watch it again.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys. And everybody, thank you for listening. We'll catch you later.
Later.
Later.